Robert Plank Show, episode 188. Take inspired action and use boundaries to create more freedom with Petra Monaco. Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Robert Plank Show. We talk about building your own business and being a self-controlling entrepreneur. And we're here with Petra Monaco, and she's an author, entrepreneur, mother, confidence builder, an action taker, a coach and mentor to women. She helps you to take inspired action, bring your life to a new level of awesome, and she gets into the how of how to make it happen. So Petra, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me. I'm super excited.
I'm super excited too, and I mean, this whole I don't know, like this whole issue with confidence and keeping yourself motivated. I mean, I feel like it's quite a struggle for me, and some days are better than others. And like over the years, I've kind of just picked up like different like tools and strategies. And so I guess my first question to you is, I mean, am I alone in the confidence and in the anxiety? I mean, is it just me, or is everyone else like me?
Everyone else is like you. We all go through these motions of, oh my gosh, yes, we're doing it. And then the next day it's like, oh God, I don't know what I'm doing. Like, it's the super most normal human thing to do. And I think what happens is that we forget about our bigger vision in the process because we get so tied up into the everyday to-dos, happenings, connecting and doing all that stuff that needs to be done every day. That the big vision really just is like becomes this distant thing and we forget about it.
Right, like we're putting out all the fires, all the immediate problems that we kind of lose track of why we even started in the first place, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Happens all the time.
And so I mean, sort of along those lines, like as far as like the vision and the plan, like there's that part part of the problem where like sometimes I'll lose track of what the big picture is, and other times I'll plan too much and I'll like get the spiral bound notebook out and I'll do too much of like planning and listing and counting my eggs before they're hatched. And so do you see anyone sort of having that problem of the I don't know if it's an issue of like balance or being within the right range, but it seems like at least for me, like I'll for sure fall into those two extremes, like not enough big picture and then too much big picture. So do you ever see any of that?
I do. And I think what happens is that we try to push ourselves further than we actually are, rather than focusing on where we are right now, with keeping that big picture in mind. So it becomes that weird balancing act of like, I want to get there, and I wish I was already there, but you can't already be there. But you just have to make it smaller. And the zone of genius, I think, is really like 90 days. Beyond that, you're too much. Like because then it becomes unrealistic. Like your mind can't even see 90 days from now. Yeah, and it just becomes about strategizing what can happen in those 90 days.
So is that 90 days? Is that like a magic number for you? So do you limit yourself to only thinking about the next 90 days?
I don't limit myself to just about anything. I'm one of those weird people, and I just wrote like a post about it. Is that I don't follow the rules very well as far as writing funnels and planning launches, because I get this idea and it's like, oh my gosh, I'm so excited, and then I make it happen. Because if I don't, then it just doesn't happen. um, Prime example, last year I had this idea of writing a book and I wrote it in under 2 weeks because I just got so excited about getting that message out about dreaming and believing and taking action versus, oh my gosh, I need to write this many words and it needs to be like detailed of when I'm sending the right email, sending the right blog post and that kind of stuff.
And
I
I mean,
think
and
it's
I can relate to that a lot because I think that early on like I was stressed out a lot about like same exact thing as you, like what day should I email, what time of day should I email, what should I write in the email, like should I spell check my web pages. And so I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but I
it's
can totally
okay.
relate to that.
Yeah, and I think it's different for everybody. I think when we can learn about different systems and strategies and test out what works and what feels good. And for me, because I'm more sort of like I really need to do come from a place of ease and flow, is to try it out, experiment with it, and whatever sticks, awesome. And what doesn't stick, that's okay.
And that's kind of interesting, and it almost makes me think about like when I was I mean, when I was younger, I didn't really know my body, I guess, right? And like I didn't know like if I stayed up super late, how I would feel the next day, or if I ate that food, like how I would feel, or if I skipped exercising, how I would feel. And like as I get older, I kind of know my body better. And the analogy to that, sort of relating to your testing out what works, I feel like lately, productivity wise, that's been helpful for me just as far as I'll try different things out and I'll kind of see where my limit is, where I'm pushing myself and getting things done, but I'm not quite burning myself out. And so an example of that is like the interview we're doing right now. We're recording a podcast episode, and this is a 5 day a week show, and I like to be like super ahead of the episodes that actually come out. But at first, I was just doing a couple a day, and I was trying to figure out, okay, well, can I do 10 a day? Or if I do one interview a day, is that too much of the switching gears? And what I finally settled on was I do 4 interviews on Monday and I do 4 interviews on Friday. And I feel like that's sort of what comes to mind when you're explaining like the sweet spot where I kind of scaled it up to that point, and I know that if I did more than that, then I might quit. But if I did less than that, it almost like wouldn't be a fun challenge, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Like I have days where I specifically just focus on blog posts. That is my writing day. Like Mondays, that is my writing day where I write my blog posts for I don't know how many days in advance. And I actively journal in the morning. So I have always content to write about because I writing is a big part of my life. So I don't ever run out of content, but having this focused time and hours for me totally works because then by 3 o'clock when my kid is coming home from school, I can shift gears into being the mother I need to be. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it really comes down to you have to figure out what works for you. That's the bottom line. You can adapt other systems and implement them, but if that doesn't feel good and doesn't align with you and who you are and how you function as a person, then you're just going to stress yourself out and burn yourself out. And that's not going to build confidence.
So what are your thoughts as far as like sticking to things for those first few days? Because like I mentioned, like the podcasting schedule, and that was something where like I just kind of like fell into that. And then you mentioned that you have like Mondays your writing day and you do the journalings in the mornings. And to be honest, I'm really jealous of that, and I really wish that I kind of had a day of the week where for like an hour or two in the morning it was just writing for whatever I needed to write. And so what are your thoughts on that, just for those first initial couple of days or weeks, like the growing pain sort of period of getting the routine figured out?
Well, first, it really comes down to you have to decide. You have to decide of how important that is for you. Journaling for me in the mornings is a form of self care. It clears my mind. It springs new ideas, all that kind of a thing. And it's super important to me. And I know that. And so I make time for it. Like I schedule that into my calendar. Once my son is off to school, I am sitting at my desk and I'm journaling for however long it's going to take me. So it just becomes about deciding. And really, you can't change a habit or do a new routine within a week. Sometimes it takes 2 to 3 weeks to implement, and so you have to just commit to it. And that's where self-discipline and just that whole self-motivation is going to be crucial. How important is it to you? Decide it and then make it happen.
A nice three-step process, right? How important,
Absolutely.
decide, and then do it.
Absolutely.
And so still along that train of thought, like I'm looking at your blog and I see that like you're in your last few entries you talked about like freedom versus boundaries, and that's again like something that's really started to be on my mind lately, because I know that if like I don't want to make a new job, right? I want to
Yeah.
still be an entrepreneur. I still want to set my own hours, do what I want. But then I have noticed that if I use the calendar more frequently and I schedule things and I actually stick to that, and the sticking to it means that I can't schedule too many things. I can't have too much stuff back to back. But sometimes I look at the week coming up or the schedule coming up, and I sort of have this anxiety, like I don't know, like am I building too much into the week or into the calendar that that I can't leave the house, right? Or that I almost have a job. So what are your thoughts on that, as far as like boundaries and freedom, and how do you use those two things to get what you want?
So a big part, I think, for me personally, is that on Sundays or Monday mornings, depending what the weekend has been like, I try to write out what my ideal week looks like. Like, what do I envision is going to happen during that week? Um, and it's going to have my staples in it of, writing, my morning routine, making dinner for the family, that kind of thing. That's all literally scheduled into my calendar so that no client can book themselves during that time. I only see clients 3 days a week because any more than that, I'm going to be exhausted forever and I can't serve and be helpful and do all those things. And when it comes to boundaries, you just have to, if it's draining you, you really have to ask yourself, is that really something I ought to be doing, need to be doing, should be doing, that kind of a thing? Or is there a different way, a simplified way? How can I make it a positive thing? And that, because sometimes we have to do those shoulds, but when we change the perception from a negative to a positive, then it becomes a lot easier to make it happen.
Okay, and so I mean, so would you say that like to overcome the the indecision, I guess, should people just kind of try these different things and then get themselves to the point where they're maybe almost burned out and and something needs to change, or like what? I mean, do you kind of understand what I'm saying? Like how does somebody get to that point of figuring out what should be changed around in the schedule?
Um, yeah, I don't think they should wait until they're burned out and ready to hit the pillow with exhaustion. I think boundaries are, and I say this in my videos and in my blog posts, boundaries are a form of self-care, not something that's going to constrict you or make you rigid. And if you're flexible enough, and we have, as entrepreneurs, we have to be flexible because things always kind of changes. um, if you're allowing that space to like, what activities are like dragging you down, what people are dragging you down, what clients do you not want to work with because they just leave you exhausted. Once you're clear about that, then you can communicate those boundaries and just say, you know what, this isn't working for me. This needs to change. And you can do that now. You don't have to wait until, like, oh my God, I need to put a week's vacation in because I just can't function right now.
That makes a lot of sense. You don't have to wait until it gets super bad. You can just go and look and see what needs to change. And so yeah, so I mean it sounds like that you have a lot of things figured out. So could you kind of tell us about like how like were things always this way, or were we at a point like earlier in life where you kind of didn't have it all figured out and then you had to discover these things to fix things? I mean, was that the case?
Oh, I certainly had to discover all of that. um, I've not always been an entrepreneur. I used to be stuck in the 9 to 5 or a 3 to 11 or whatever was paying the bills at the time. Single parenting periodically, just figuring out about this whole life thing. And I always had these dreams of writing books and having a business and doing what I wanted to do without anybody telling me what I had to do. But it wasn't sort of until my son got really sick that I was like, oh my gosh, the time is now. I can't wait any longer. And really started looking within of where did I need to change personally in order to move forward and create, what I wanted to create.
And so what have you created?
Well, I have my coaching business, right? So I'm helping women figure it all out wherever they are. I live in Central Virginia on 2 acres with nothing but trees. I get to create art every day, which is hugely important to me as well. I write. I'm in the relationship that feels absolutely incredible. I communicate my boundaries with him when I need to because he isn't always on par. And I don't know, I just get to do everything I want to do.
Awesome. So would you say that before like things were just kind of like a disorganized mess, and then maybe when you split it up, like you mentioned that it's almost like broken down into blocks, right? There's the coaching part, there's the nature, the peace part, there's
Yep.
the art part, the relationship. So it sounds like you like once you broke your life down into pieces, then you could just kind of fix each piece, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's really how that happens. Like, it's all a balance and act, if you will. And I'm not a huge fan of the word balance because it's always kind of like the ocean come and go kind of a thing, right? Sometimes we have big waves, sometimes not so much. And that's really how life truly is. Even now, still, there's sometimes things that happen and it's like, oh my gosh, can I make it through the storm? But I also, had challenges before and I know I've made them through that. Um, and so you just got to figure out what part of your life you want to change and then figure out what you want it to look like. And that goes back to the vision. and then break it down into these small steps of making that change.
It makes a lot of sense to me. And so, and you mentioned that, so you provide coaching to women who kind of want to who want to get their act together. So could you tell us about that service?
Sure. So every person, every woman is in a different place. They want different things. Sometimes they just want to write a book and want an accountability partner, but they're so afraid that they get judged and criticized. So a lot of my work is around mindset, about getting over that fear, what's stopping them, the excuses that they're making, kind of a thing. And sometimes they just need a little bit longer time. Going back to college is a huge thing if you decide to go back to college. I've done it twice and it was incredibly hard each time, and sometimes you just need somebody that kind of holds your hand. Or if you want to start a business, oh my gosh, I need a website, I need a newsletter, I need all these things, and I don't know what to do and where to begin, and I can help them with that. I'm sort of pride myself in being a little geeky and nerdy in that area where I'm like, yeah, I understand the tech part, I also understand the life part, and I kind of can help you connect those pieces.
And that's awesome. And yeah, so that way they can get everything, right? They can get the mindset aspect of it, or if they need the technical aspect from you. And a lot of what I'm hearing too, and this might just be just from what I'm listening for from people, but I'm hearing from a lot of people recently that there's definitely something to that outsider looking into your business, someone who, like, doesn't know your personality, or doesn't, or might not even know your niche, but just someone who is looking from the outside in and saying, well, here's what doesn't make sense, or here's what needs to be taken out, or here's what needs to be added. So, I mean, am I on the right track there? Like, is there something to having that outside person looking into someone else's business to kind of give them a different perspective?
Oh, without a questions. We can't always be objective because we tend to be pretty biased about our own things. And in addition, we tend to be super critical about ourselves. So having somebody else kind of take a look at how things are working, how they're not working, and guide you through the process can be super helpful in moving yourself forward versus staying stuck and wondering why nothing's changing.
Right, and just being caught in that cycle. And so
Yeah.
so you provide like a 1 month, a 3 month, and a 6 months coaching, it looks like. And could you tell us about the other thing, like the courses and sorts of things you have for sale?
Yeah, so I have different courses. I have done lots of different things in my life. I have an art business in addition to a coaching business. And so I know what it means to build an e-commerce store when want to sell your handmade or sell on Etsy or anything like that. And that can be daunting and overwhelming, branding, that kind of a stuff. So I have a small course that it's might actually be on hold right now because I need to rework some stuff. But there's courses on how to step out of the shadow, like rise above, to shush the voices that telling you no, you can't do that. And it's usually the voices that we picked up growing up of like stay safe in a job until you retire.
Right.
That kind of a stuff, and the negative beliefs that we picked up. Again, huge part of my work is around mindset because we do have those voices in our heads that say, who do you think you are? Because we've picked that up somewhere in our life. Um, and there's been trauma or, abandonment in some form. Like specifically for me, there has been a lot of that. And I had to rise above that so many times to be really owning my own power and my voice. So I have courses related to around that. I have a small intro course on social media because that can be daunting and overwhelming for people. um, and I have a mindset on fire challenge. It's sort of like a 30-day action packed, like what goal can you make happen in 30 days? And it's just asking your questions every day and then hashing out the steps you're taking.
Cool. And what I'm hearing, as far as like a recurring theme from your coaching and your courses and all that, is that you kind of work the mindset in there a little bit. And I think that, at least with me, it's like I very rarely go out like looking for help in the mindset, or like I might look for like the answer to a small problem, and it sounds like a lot of people don't even, either they don't know that the mindset aspect is important, or maybe they're too like ashamed or something to look for help on that. And so I really like that you said that, you have the course about Etsy, but you work in the confidence stuff. You have the course about the social media stuff, and then you work in the mindset into that. And you mentioned that that the silencing the voices, or getting those voices to get out of the way is really important. The ones that say that you're not good enough, or you need to
Yeah.
play it more safe. And so, is there an easy answer, or do you have any good strategies for making those voices not so loud?
So my strategy is journaling. I like to challenge my own fears where I'm like, what am I so afraid of? And then just kind of acknowledge the fear. I think we sometimes tend to just shush the ego away or not even acknowledge where this fear is coming from without addressing it. And it's just going to keep showing up. Right. And so by writing it out, this is what I'm afraid of. And here's the evidence of why I'm afraid of it. But how can I overcome it or just challenge it? Like, I've done this before. I have done this to just kind of disprove ego and the fear is really been super helpful to me personally as far as going to the next level.
Okay, and that sounds like a pretty good, I guess, journaling prompt there. If someone would just
Yeah.
list out, what am I so afraid of? And this is, again, like, I'm thinking about all these different connections, because even about a week or two ago, I was really angry about something, and I was talking about it to my business partner, and he asked me, "Why are you angry?" And I was just thinking, like, I mean, I don't know. I just had like this huge, like blinding light of anger. And for him to just to ask that question of like, oh, okay, like I need to break it down, and I need to think about, like I said, like look for the evidence of it, and like see about ways to overcome this challenge. But yeah, when you were mentioning that question, what am I afraid of? It totally brought me back to that. Okay, well, why am I feeling blank? Like, it's easy to just feel some kind of emotion, to think, well, that's how I am, or that's what's happening to me. But I mean, what I'm hearing as far as our conversation today is that there's definitely something to just breaking it down into smaller pieces. And if I say, well, what if I'm afraid of this? I'm afraid of putting out a product or something, and it's not going to do well. Well, then what's the evidence of that? Or can I break this down into some smaller problems?
Yeah, and also to remind yourself of the successes you've already had. I've had several products and services that didn't jive very well, and I'm like, but I went to college and I graduated with a 4.0, so there's that. It's to just find those different pieces that allow us to celebrate ourselves and build our confidence. Well, I've done this, so this is just a small hiccup.
Awesome. And so, as far as people, getting that better perspective, and looking back at those big successes, so that the small hiccups that are in more recent times don't seem as big. I mean, do you see a big mistake people making as far as their mindset and their confidence and all that stuff?
I think when they experience failure, which is not even a bad thing, it's really a good thing because you're just getting closer to this next big thing, is they try to walk away when they really shouldn't walk away. So it's really challenging yourself to acknowledge, yeah, okay, this was didn't work so well. Off to the next thing, and just find that courage. Again, work with the mindset to do it again.
So don't walk away. Do it again. Figure out why it didn't work. Do a do it again, but with more knowledge of what didn't work before, right?
Yeah, reflection and reviews are a beautiful thing.
Awesome. Reflection and reviews. And so if everyone here is listening to this great advice that you've given us, and they want to know where to find you, where to find the blog you mentioned, where to find your courses and coaching and everything else, where should they go?
They should go to petramonaco.com.
Cool.
And you want me to spell that just because?
Yes, please. I was about
it's
to, but you go ahead.
it's petramonaco.com.
Cool. So petramonaco.com, and I think that this is such an important topic, and I think that a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, I think that, and you probably see this too. I think that a lot of people just get stuck in the technical stuff, in the mechanics, and they kind of put the mindset and the self care and that morning routine and all that stuff off to the side. And from what I'm hearing about the way that you've built the life that you want, and the way that you've changed things up, is that it sounds like this is such an important thing for everyone to look into. And we all have those highs and lows, and I mean, I think that everyone needs to be looking into this, and to always just stay up to date on how they're reacting and what they should be doing. And everyone should go right now to petramonaco.com and get all those goodies we talked about, the blog, the courses, and the coaching. And so thanks so much for stopping by the show today, Petra. And I appreciate everything that you share with us today.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was a blast.
Subscribe to us right now while it's still fresh on your mind at robertplank.com/iTunes, or just search Robert Plank in your iTunes app.